Viral outbreaks is another healthcare route. In America, hepatitis C is very often seen very much as a veteran's disease. 2/3 of American deaths from Hep C are military in origin. There are 147,000 currently diagnosed hepatic members of the Veterans Association. It's a generation's Purple Heart. One of the main reasons for that is that so many of them got them from needle gun inoculations during the war. It's a paradigm where a massive national organisation took complete ownership. We infected our soldiers with this bug, and we're going to look after our boys. Completely different attitude. They went round Egypt and inoculated everyone for this mosquito on the Nile, and in the 70s infected 1 in 10 Egyptians. 1 in 10 Egyptians are now Hep C positive. So it gives you an idea of the power or the scale of viral outbreaks. In the United Kingdom at the moment, we're not noticing any. In Washington State, they've noticed 7 in the last 4 years. And this is when your little clinic, your little dentist, just starts to get a little sloppy in cleaning. If you have to clean anything 100 times, would you always do it right? We have no protection against viral outbreaks. If you have a kit industry, somebody who's that way inclined, the moment they have an injection, will go and get checked. And that's how we find viral outbreaks in Washington 7 times over. And which clinics aren't so hygienic. We cannot do that in England. I used to train nurses in Soweto. It's interesting how down there we turned around a 10% HIV positive nurse population. And the moment they were HIV, they became HIV nurse consultants. They were paying more and they marched off and slaughtered the biggest epidemic in history in Africa. They were empowered nurses, proud of what they were doing, proud of being infected in the line of fire. Our nurses, every single nurse I've spoken to is very nervous about having a hepatitis C check because it will ruin her career. This isn't good for nurses. The MBS will not accept anyone's blood who's already had a UK transfusion of blood. You're so likely to have blood if you've had UK blood, they wouldn't even dream of taking it back from you. Which is just a strange anomaly that we don't have any get tested, know your risk posters. The key thing is to understand the numbers involved. At the moment they're issuing 2.1 million units. They passed 1 million units in 1958. The key question is how many people do they transfuse to? Now we're looking at about 500,000 throughout the 70s and the 80s. So it's a high number of infections. You'll be looking at 12 to 15,000 blood infections a year minimum, and then maybe 10,000 dialysis or blood product organ infections on top. We have to get the numbers right, and one of the best people I've come across, Dr. O'Shaughnessy. She's in Southampton General. She wrote this article. You're looking at 5,000 diagnoses of non-A, non-B or transfusion hepatitis from 72 to 89. And my question is, where did they go in 1990 to 96? They just vanished. They've never been looked at. Even if you had non-A, non-B on your file, it's a non-diagnosis. Moving on. This is an amazing thing. I searched for 3 years all over the world to find out how many transfusions the NHS did a year. I bribed people, I begged people. Up the road from where I live, Dr. Guest. He's commissioned to do this study in 1998. And as you can see, we're looking at an incredible number of transfusions. And if 2.5% of those were infectious, it gives you an idea of the numbers we're dealing with. Now we're moving into beyond the cover-up. All right, they burnt all the prison blood records, they burnt all the hospital records. What they could never ever burn was the record of the nation's blood sera in Colindale at the Public Health Service Laboratory. Every year, 10,000 samples of blood are taken anonymously from all parts of the UK and held for a reference for the nation. Those 10,000 units per annum sera in 1986 revealed 1.7% of the UK had Hep C. This is background prevalence. This is not injector prevalence. This is not high-risk prevalence. This is just you and me prevalence. 1.07%. What's frightening about that is you've got to be looking at 580,000 infections in 1985. Our government has told us 200,000 infections. ever since it started mentioning this epidemic. Why has it purposely lost 380,000 infections? From 1986 all the way through to 1996, the background prevalence only decreased 0.14. So we might have lost, say, over an entire decade, 50,000 infections due to death. It brings up this key point, 50,000 a decade, 5,000 a year die. Moving on, conclusions. The majority of HCV infections were probably acquired before 86. Why, in God's name, would anyone use that particular year? Why that time? How come it's all before then? Very simple. It's about prison blood. We stopped using prison blood in 1985. The transfused before 1985 came in at 2.6%. The transfused after 85 came in at 1%. What you're looking at there is a 1.6% drop due to phasing out prison blood donation. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of infections from our prisons. We are the last country in the world to phase out prison blood.